All right. Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Catherine Mortensen with Americans for Limited Government. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special guest. We have Representative Bill Posey from Florida. He represents actually the Vieira, Florida area, which is where my parents live. So I've spent quite a bit of time visiting your district down there, and it's lovely. You're very lucky to be a native there of Florida. So thank you for joining us today, Congressman.
Glad to do it, Kat. Always glad to be with y'all. Really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thanks. So what we want to talk about today is this over-reliance that the United States has and this over-dependence on China for some of our most critical things. Like we found out during the pandemic, this became as a surprise to many Americans, just how dependent we were on China or are for critical medicines, even agriculture, rare earth minerals, personal protective equipment. A lot of these things, we as Americans just didn't realize how dependent we are on China. And you have really taken the lead in Congress, and it's been bipartisan. You have partnered with Representative Tim Ryan of Ohio on introducing several really big pieces of legislation to address this problem of our overdependence on China. So why don't I just start by letting you tell us about the Critical Supply Chain Commission Act. What would that do?
Well, we know that no country should ever abdicate its responsibilities to meet its own needs, especially abdicating those responsibilities to countries that don't even like us. I mean, that even makes it worse. So this establishes a commission that will help identify, mitigate, and prevent dependence on the importation of those goods from countries like China.
So why is this so important that we reduce our dependence on China? Well, what are some of the obvious, complications that could come our way if we don't?
Well, the very first reality that everybody needs to realize is that China's goal, of course, is world domination. Clearly, unequivocally, unabashedly, they admit it. They want world domination. They think they're the right way to go, and they plan to, through economic dominance, obtain military superiority, and they're in the process of doing that. And most people don't view it like that, but that's a bare, raw fact that we must always consider. And so that drives an awful lot of what we're doing. COVID just helped us get some footing with other legislators that seem to be bothered by the thought that we need to do something about our various threats from China.
And Bill, I just put up a graphic there at the bottom. In reading through some of your material that you've been sending to your constituents, I found that 80% of U.S. pharmaceuticals come from overseas, and that the U.S. has not produced basic medicines such as penicillin since 2004. How did this even happen that we got to this point?
Well, again, that's capitalism in a free enterprise system. Corporate America, looking for the biggest profit margin, go to the cheapest labor market, the cheapest market for everything, and that's overseas. They don't have a minimum wage. They don't have environmental standards. They don't have anybody that could object to the way they're doing business. And so it's easy for them to dominate. And when it provides more profit for corporate America farms it out there.
Wow, that is unbelievable. And the other thing that you have indicated is that in 2008, China pumped counterfeit blood clot medication into the U.S. market. I don't think a lot of us knew that. Or, wow. I mean, what were the consequences of that?
Well, there basically are no consequences. And it's not our first rodeo. I mean, you go back to probably 2000, early this century with the Chinese drywall that bankrupted so many families. And there was zero accountability for it. Zero. The people that caused it, the Chinese who brought in this drywall that went in so many thousands of people's homes, many in my district, and basically made the dwelling unlivable with the pollutants that eked out of the walls from this bogus drywall, and there was no consequences whatsoever. So they've gone along and feel empowered to do just whatever they want without having any repercussions.
So we're just grateful to you because it sounds like you are trying to impose consequences and hold them accountable. So the first piece of big legislation, it was the Critical Supply Chain Commission Act. Again, this is bipartisan, so this is not a partisan issue.
Right.
People have, yeah, right.
It sure shouldn't be.
Right.
It sure shouldn't be. If you care about your constituents, if you care about this country and the future of this country, it sure should not be partisan. And I'm proud to have Tim Ryan as a Democratic co-sponsor.
Yes. So you have really been working closely in a bipartisan way with Representative Tim Ryan of Ohio. So I just want to make people aware that this is not a partisan issue. This cuts across all politics, that we need to be less dependent on China. So then the second thing that's noteworthy that you have done in Congress in recent months is you introduced the Safe Medicine Act. And you say that would end U.S. reliance on foreign powers for life-saving medicine. So this is a little more narrow. It's looking just at the pharmaceuticals. Why is this so important?
Well, number one, I think we need to attack the overdependence that we have from every different angle that we can. And this is just another important component where we've been exploited by the Chinese, and we need to try and do something again. It's about accountability. So
it's important because as we learned during COVID, we realized that we were dependent on China for personal protective equipment and in some cases, even medicines that Americans simply were not aware that that's what we had done in our country.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody can have a different idea about it, but, clearly I believe that the virus came from the Wuhan lab in China. And so we're infected by them. And then we're trying to rely on or having to rely on them for some help to mitigate the damage that we're having because of it. It's also wrong. We need to have a polar change in directions of where we're getting our pharmaceutical products and other products.
And the third thing that you have done, Congressman, let me just change this out. One moment. Okay, so I want to hide that one. I want to show a new one. Okay, yeah. So you sent a letter along with many of your colleagues in the House to Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra, urging him to grow the national stockpile of critical pharmaceuticals. Have you heard back from the secretary? Has any action been taken?
We have not heard back, and sometimes it takes a while for us to hear back, but so far we have not heard back, and we think obviously we should have a stockpile of critical needs at our disposal should China decide to just turn the spigot off.
So what other progress are we making in this effort to hold China accountable? Are you getting a growing support? What kind of response has Nancy Pelosi and the House leadership given to these bills?
Well, she hasn't given it any attention whatsoever. And it's hard to get traction when you see the big picture of everything that's on the front page today. Here, we got an issue going here. We got an issue going over here. We got the Afghanistan withdrawal being wrong. We've got talks about corruption and collusion that's being investigated or not being investigated. There's so many issues going now, and this one just doesn't seem to get the kind of traction that it deserves.
Well, I think it's important because what has happened, or perhaps is still ongoing, this worldwide pandemic with COVID, we need to understand where it came from. We need to understand what are the supply chain issues, how we are over-reliant on China and other countries, because this pandemic has really been eye-opening for us in terms of our ability to sort of protect our own people. And we have to do things differently. So I'm just grateful for your leadership in calling attention to this issue and ensuring that this doesn't happen again. And really, as you've indicated, the most critical piece of information in all of this is knowing where this virus came from. And here at Americans for Limited Government, we have we are supporting legislation there in Congress that would create an independent commission to investigate the origins of COVID. We are asking our supporters to send an email to their members of Congress urging them to support this. And if you click on the link in the description below this video, you'll be able to send an email to your member of Congress urging them to support efforts, it's specific legislation, to get to the bottom of understanding where this virus came from. And Representative, I know this is something that's important to you as well.
Well, that's really good advice to anyone who listens to this. We had filed a similar bill, but we're happy to support this one. It doesn't matter which one comes to the top, as long as one goes to the top that has a true independent examination of where the virus came from, how it got here. If nothing else, it will help us better prepare for the next round.
Right. Dan, do you have any final thoughts and any final message to Americans who support limited government and who are looking for leaders in Congress like yourself? Any final words that you have for them?
Well, no, I'm just glad that they're following you, and I hope they'll share that with other people. I love what you guys do. I've been with you for some time. We've done some events together in the past. I hope we'll do some more in the future as we try and bring more attention to the need we have for less independence on China.
All right.
And President Biden says we need to buy America. Well, we also need to sell America.
Yes, we do. We need to do more to get our manufacturers involved in these critical supply chain issues instead of outsourcing it to foreign countries, and specifically China. So we thank you for your leadership, and we're grateful for everything that you're doing. So thank you. And that's Congressman Bill Posey of Florida. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you back another time here on Americans for Limited Government. Thank you.